Bakugan just rebooted into its third generation last summer, known as Bakugan 3.0, Bakugan Revolution, or as the new logo suggests, simply Bakugan, which won't be confusing at all. For those not in the know, the franchise first started in 2007 out of a collaboration with the Japanese company Sega Toys and the Canadian Spin Master. The basic idea is what if Transformers but marbles, and also it's a card game. Almost 2 decades after the first show aired, and hot off the heels of its second generation, this new anime premiered on Roblox, actually, with the first half of Season 1 subsequently being dropped onto Netflix last September. There was a lot of criticism right out the gate of both the new toys and the show for this generation. Are people just hating on it because it's different? Any new generation of a franchise will go through some growing pains, and the full season isn't even out yet at the time of my writing. But that second half just dropped yesterday, if I can get this video out fast enough. So let's review the new Bakugan anime. Despite featuring a main character named Dan with a partner Dragonoid, the anime is a complete reboot of the series like Generation 2 was. There isn't much information on the production of the anime yet, which makes sense as it's still so new, but I believe it's clearly done by a different studio with a completely different art style. Right off the bat, it is a lot more detailed, getting closer to the original Bakugan look, but still stylized a bit like Gen 2 was. It's like it's trying to bridge itself as something that's both new but built on the past. The show starts in media res. Bakugan in this world is an established sport. The Bakugan fell to Earth after being mysteriously transported from a portal from the far-off Vestroya galaxy during the middle of a war between the different factions of Bakugan. This first episode tries to establish how the game of Bakugan developed, with the Bakugan first being used like Pokemon, where they just battle without any strategy involved. Drago even learned the move Flamethrower.
My mouth was like a flamethrower.
This is where we see Dan at the beginning, about to face off against Cage. That's probably meant to be pronounced Kage. And his Bakugan, Nilius. Nilius is Dragonoid's rival back from Vestroya, and the one who started the war between the Bakugan. They brawl, and when Dragonoid is pushed to the edge, Dan's eyes start glowing, and the first Bakugan card appears. He pairs with Dragonoid, causing him to get bigger and beat Nilius. And then we get our first number on screen. That's right, boys, it's Bakugan now. Don't worry though, this won't be like regular Bakugan, where all that decides victory is a bigger number. No. It's like Yu-Gi-Oh, where the number doesn't matter until it hits 0. But unlike Yu-Gi-Oh, well, we'll get there. So, Dan has just changed the way Bakugan is played. Soon, everyone starts pairing with their Bakugan and getting gate cards. The cards create this new battlefield with holographic obstacles and power-ups called BAMs. I think this is meant to represent the power-up tiles in the Gen 2 version of the game, but from what I've seen, I don't think these are in the new game. This is where we get to start being introduced to Dan's friends when Mia challenges him to a oh, never mind, Bakugan are attacking the city. Some Bakugan get corrupted in a dark aura after brawling and go crazy, so Dan and Mia stop them. Unfortunately, this has already tarnished the reputation of the Bakugan, and brawling is outlawed. A ban that will be enforced by the worst cop ever, and that's really saying something. Chip. Fortunately though, the forced second-class status of the minority group doesn't lead to any apparent racism against the Bakugan, as Dragonoid is able to easily get a job as a fry cook at Burger King. Well, I guess he's not like a politician or a banker or an actor or any sort of public-facing job. He's like in the back of the kitchen, so maybe there's some racism. He really likes his job, but Dan's bummed out about not being able to brawl anymore. This is where Griffin comes into play. Dan's other friend, Griffin, is a DJ who's good with technology but lacks confidence in his life, especially in brawling, as he never had a chance to pair with a Bakugan before the game was outlawed. That is, until a new Bakugan, Trox, crashes to Earth. At first, he tries to fight them. Chip then gives chase when he sniffs out a brawl, leading to them running away straight into an underground Bakugan fight club inside a volcano. That's right, even though brawling has been outlawed, kids have formed 6 secret underground clans to continue the sport illegally. Each clan has their own brawling stadium called a mod. Our heroes have stumbled upon the Dragon Clan mod, but there's also the Dino, Aquatic, Insect, Mammal, and Avian clans. It seems the system was set up by Cage's Bakugan Nilius, who wants to rule over all the other Bakugan and is also racist. They battle over whether Dan should join or not, much fuss is made, but ultimately Dan doesn't end up joining, because Dragonoid is a radical woke leftist who groomed Dan into believing all factions are equal and we should celebrate our differences rather than subdivide ourselves based on them. And the three friends form the Misfit Clan. From here on, the first half of Season 1 will be pretty episodic, focusing on learning some new abilities, introducing a new Misfit member, or introducing a new faction for the crew to face. And starting us off, the crew immediately face off against the Insect Clan, whose members are named Tilde, Function, and Backslash. And they talk with Leap Gamer speak. Love them. Excellent characters. The clan challenged them to a brawl to join some league, and that if they lose, they're permanently banned from said league. It's a 2-on-3 representing the way an actual game would be played. Mia wins her first battle, and then Griffin wins his before Dan even has a chance to lose. This league and the rule that losing leads to a ban will never be brought up again after this. After that though, they pick up a new team member, Murph.
3 people just can't cut it.
3 people and a dog. I can't believe you forgot Murph.
And then another new member, Jasper. These are the characters with the highest win streak in the show. But Dan's friends are being speciesist and decide they need a new human member, so they pick up Juno. She's a stunt girl who's also an expert hacker, because we need more of those, who doesn't care about the rules. Also, they battle Mammal Clan and lose, it's not that important. With Juno on the team, she soon hacks into the gate card, discovering Gold Evolution, which powers up their Bakugan by giving them a special weapon they use to defeat the Insect Clan when they show up again. Which is a little dumb because we already know the Insect Clan is weak, so it would have been better to rematch Mammal Clan, but whatever. Also, for some reason, this was a part of Insect Clan's plan to lose to them, so they could learn about their new secret evolution that they literally just got and had no reason to believe they had. With this information acquired though, Nilius and Cage break into Misfit Clan's mod and steal the method for Gold Evolution. Along the way, they're stopped by a series of obstacles set up by Murph and Jasper, and then the animals actually brawl against Nilius and beat him? And this would be really funny if the entire time Cage didn't have extreme "wow, that just happened" Marvel humor the entire time. Also, despite winning, Cage still gets the data, so it really didn't even matter. Nilius gives Dino Clan the information so they can challenge Misfit Clan. I find it really funny that this episode sets up Griffin being afraid to battle them, building up his confidence and training, only to totally eat shit when Dino Clan reveals their Gold Evolution. Then we get an episode where Dan tries to get some meme of himself taken off the internet thinking Insect Clan did it, but really Drago made it and they just spread it. I don't know, it's not that funny.
I want everything off the internet!
But after this, they realize they keep eating shit and losing every battle they're in against any clan that isn't Insect, so they decide they should prove their ideals of cooperation by forming an alliance. Juno clearly has some beef with the Aquatic Clan, but they decide to go talk to them anyways. They brawl, Juno eats shit, and then floods their underwater mod, killing them all. We will never hear of alliances again. And that just proves why socialism could never work. The next episode fools us into thinking we're getting another new member of the team when Isaac, the owner of one of the Bakugan who rampaged across the city, Octagon, visits. He wants to brawl again, but no one trusts him, so Dan decides to brawl and then Octagon rampages again. Who would have guessed? It's only after this that Octagon decides to explain that it's probably connected to the secret military lab where he was tested on after arriving to Earth. Information that would have been much more useful before they brawled, I digress. Also, keep in mind that Octagon rampaged here because once we know what causes the rampages, it will not make sense. So the team do some research on the lab's location, hidden underneath Illusion Tech, the company that develops all the sci-fi technology in the world through reverse engineering Vestroyan tech. Instead of, I don't know, just asking the Bakugan how they built it, I guess. Mia and Dan infiltrate the lab, Mia seeing her father, and Dan running into an ex-famous brawler and his Bakugan Hammerhead. This celebrity kid has some amnesia, not remembering his name. He only remembers that he came here because Hammerhead didn't have a job after brawling was outlawed. It also has some new titanium evolution, and Dan manages to somehow beat him. The guards find him though. They think Dan and Mia are a part of some group called V, which will be touched on later. The kid leads them away, and when they portal out of the lab, Dan brings him along with them. This kid is Thunder Crunch. He named himself after the sound pickles make when you eat them. Despite knowing in the last episode that brawling was outlawed, the next writer decides that TC, short for Thunder Crunch, doesn't actually know that, and he runs around trying to find someone to brawl, leading to a run-in with the police. This leads to more scrutiny of Team Misfits, so Mia runs away wanting to brawl not under supervision, running into the Avian clan. She beats them and the Dragon clan steals their info on her new Titanium evolution, which I don't know how they could just copy it from having seen it, but sure. TC then decides he wants to learn how to brawl, because that's something we have definitely never seen him do and know he's not professionally skilled at. So he runs around with Juno and faces off against the different clans. Each time they start a brawl though, Chip catches them, and Jesus, Juno is such a huge dick in this episode. Instead of just challenging people outright, she pushes TC into the Mammal clan leader to provoke him. Then she destroys a robot built by the Insect clan to provoke them. They have never given any indication that they wouldn't just battle her if she asked. The next episode decides that actually just seeing Titanium evolution wasn't enough, because now, when Griffin has a spat with his friends, the Dino clan try to butter him up in an effort to steal Titanium evolution from him. Then we find out Misfit clan has a fan base, and Mia battles one of its haters online. The moral of this episode is that you should always respond to your trolls and beat them up. Not that this changes their mind in the episode either. And then randomly, the show realizes we need a mid-season finale, so we find out about some secret underground tournament being held that we totally weren't aware of all the way back in the beginning of the series. The Misfits weren't invited though, so they train a bit and then crash it. But Dan Joestar, Nilius says passionately, "I didn't invite you because I knew you'd crash the tournament and make yourselves look like assholes in front of everyone." Dan just says he didn't invite them because he's a chicken. So the two face off, and during the battle, Dragonoid actually spitting some facts I was thinking about while watching. He says despite Nilius wanting the clans to be separate, by fighting against the Misfits, he's unintentionally unified them. That's when Nilius says that was actually part of his plan all along, and that really he did it to control all the other clans, which everyone hears, because this is taking place in the middle of a stadium during a live streamed tournament. Idiot. Then Dan gets some Deus Ex Machina combo bam and beats Nilius. This is when we find out more about how the war between the Bakugan started. Dragonoid and Nilius fought over the decision to use a galaxy cannon, a deadly super weapon, to begin the war. But during the battle, a volcanic eruption distracted Drago, causing Nilius to beat him. But when he fired the cannon, all the Bakugan got transported to Earth instead of dead. So when Mia's dad, who's working with Illusion Tech by the way, finds the galaxy cannon and its energy source, the Kogito drive, the team try to get a hold of it. Drago wants it destroyed, finally dropping one last bombshell. Before Nilius fired the cannon, Drago modified the Kogito drive. He thought it would destroy the cannon, but instead, it caused all the Bakugan to portal to Earth. And of course, Nilius overhears this and uses it to goat them into one last battle. If they lose, they disband their clan. He does a super cool gold and titanium evolution, but Dan goes, "Nuh-uh, I can do that too." Nilius seethes and copes and tries to order Cage around to win, but Cage finally decides he's had enough of being told what to do and refuses. Apparently, he's the one who told Dan about the secret combo evolution. And I actually think this is built up pretty well. Nilius has always been a dick to Cage, and Cage mostly just took it, but this allows Drago to win, beating Nilius the fuck up, but I guess no one was watching the Kogito drive because it just gets stolen by some shadowy figure. In one last-ditch effort, Nilius tells everyone what Drago did. They all get angry, and then a red portal appears in the sky, triggering Bakugan to start rolling themselves out and rampaging. The clans are all little piss babies about helping Team Misfit calm down the Bakugan, but eventually relent a little bit. Then, the first part ends. Who could it be? Alright, let's take a break between parts 1 and 2 of the season to talk about the new toys that came out alongside the anime. So to start off, these are just my impressions, but if you want a much more in-depth review of the actual game from the perspective of a pro Bakugan enjoyer, be sure to check out Jet Kuso's video on the topic as well. So jumping right in, there's been a lot of criticism since the reboot was teased that they're just copying Beyblade, guys. And yeah, I can see that to an extent. The new gimmick this season is the Special Attack Bakugan, which come with a detachable second half that spins. The build for this piece is actually really solid. You can put the ripcord through any direction and it spins pretty well. But spinning isn't the only similarity to Beyblade. There's also a lot of possibilities for customizability by splitting the Bakugan into halves. But for now, the spinning play is really basic and basically useless without a stadium. And that's the only customizable feature as of now. Outside of the gimmick though, the game is confusing, and the pieces make it difficult to play. Spinning the Bakugan is way harder to land on a card than just rolling it, and the new ability cards are split in half as well, which is interesting, but incredibly uncomfortable to hold. This is remedied a bit by the special card holder that comes in the battle pack I got. It has a super tiny, useless ripcord, but it serves to hold your ability card together on one side and store your other cards on the reverse. Although with mine, I encountered a slight issue, and it's something I noticed with the balls too. The plastic build quality has gone down. My card holder did not come out of its mold right when it was manufactured and has a slight lip that doesn't let me fully slide my card through the top, meaning I have to sort of jerry-rig it in there from the bottom. I tried pushing it through the top and ended up just scratching my card. The Bakugan themselves also just feel cheap, and their designs are really simple compared to what came before. Even the first generation Bakugan feel more creative than this. They're still sticking to the B3 larger size of the Generation 2 Bakugan, but they're not really taking advantage of that right now. Maybe in the future the designs will improve though. I will say, despite all my gripes, their packaging is stellar. I was drooling over this box when I saw it online and immediately went to the store to get it, and honestly, I just think Dragonoid looks so good in his packaging that I haven't even opened it yet, which is saying something because I collect different variations of Dragonoid just for displaying. But yeah, overall, I think there's a promise, but so far, the implementation isn't great. Part 2 of the anime jumps forward in time from where we last left off. Now, the Bakugan world has gone full police state with the invention of the neutralizer. This device severs the bond between Bakugan and Brawler, making it impossible to roll out a Bakugan into their larger form, and thus impossible for Bakugan to rampage anymore. The government requires all Bakugan to be concentrated into small camps where they are put to a wall and shot with the beam. At first, I thought the beam trapped the Bakugan in their ball form and the show was taking a way darker turn than I expected, but they just can't go big anymore. We don't sit on this inability to brawl for too long though, as all the clans soon get a mysterious invitation from a man in a holographic mask. The man offers them a chance to repair their bond with their Bakugan, if they can win a brawl. Dan goes in first, trying to use his super powerful gold titanium evolution, but Drago's too drained to use it again. Still, even depowered, he manages to win. The masked man, calling himself V, requests clan members go in one at a time, so once Dan returns, Mia and Ventry go in next. While Mia gains a new confidence in herself facing off against the head of the Avian clan atop Illusion Tower, Dan and Griffin scope out Illusion Tower as Dan suspects Mia's dad. He helped make the neutralizers, and Dan believes Illusion Tech may have started the rampage as an excuse to sell the neutralizers to the government. Despite her dad seeing Dan and some employees seeing the world-famous Drago, they all get in and out unidentified. But the data they uncover actually shows Mia's dad researching a way to counteract the neutralizers. So it's a dead lead. Soon, V determines everyone has earned back their pairing and announces a new tournament to be held in his mod with a special prize. It's also revealed that V has the government in his back pocket, as he commands the police captain to keep Chip off the job so that the brawlers can move around undetected. The Misfit clan argues and competes over who should participate before pulling straws and determining it should be Mia, Griffin, and Juno. Then Juno sprains her ankle, so Dan, after an emotional Ferris wheel ride with TC, decides that TC should take her place. As the team prepares for the tournament, we start getting more hints at TC's past. He talks about how he wants to uncover his memories of his family, and a strange man who seems to know who he is breaks into Misfit Clan's mod. The man also has the same tracksuit as V, and V has been watching TC through his cameras. What a strange, unnoteworthy coincidence. As the team rages on, TC and Griffin both lose their battles. Though Griffin essentially forfeited his because he was upset Trox was motivated and wanted to win. I'm not making that up. There's an episode where Dan is a bad leader again while training, and then one where, while going through the files from Illusion Labs, Juno accidentally neutralizes Ventry, but with an enormous effort from all members of the team, they're able to fix it and get her back to Mia. Then we get an episode where Juno tries to restore TC's memories. It doesn't work at first, but soon he starts having flashes from the past. Then we jump to Mia, finding out about Dan not trusting her dad at the same time they have a tag team battle. They do win and go into the next battle, but this one is tougher, for numerous reasons. Mia is already out of it because she's upset that her parents support neutralizing Bakugan and wishes she could just tell them the truth that she's a brawler. She's so upset that she leaves her phone behind, and her father discovers the truth. He tracks down the tournament, but instead of denouncing it, he helps her out. See, the other reason she's struggling is that Backslash was helping to hack into the stage and cause all BAMs to go to Mia's opponent. So her father comes in and reverse hacks the game. This allows her to win the tournament and obtain the ultimate prize. That being another match. This time against V himself. And his Bakugan, the very same that has been missing ever since the mid-season finale, Nilius. For this match, V wants to play for Auntie, but after being pressed on the ethics of taking a Bakugan, he says that instead, if he wins, Ventry can choose to come with him or not. So obviously he's cheating somehow, right? And then uses mind control because Ventry does appear to choose to go with him when Mia loses. He then confidently challenges all brawlers to the same stakes. Many people battle him and lose their Bakugan, and the Misfits investigate the stadium to try and figure out what's up, eventually developing an antivirus that allows Drago to go undercover to figure out how the deception works. V uncovers their uncovering, however, and fights them off. He seems personally slighted by their ability to get around his manipulation and increases the output of the mind control virus from his mask. He does so to the point that it's burning up and hurting him, just to take control of Drago. He's determined to win against the Misfits using him and Ventry their own Bakugan. The battle only pauses when TC recognizes V, and he decides to take off the mask, revealing himself to be TC's, no, Andrew's his real name, Andrew's brother, Vakar. Apparently, his parents were poor engineers, who built technology not for profit, but to help people, and for this, they were fired from Illusion Tech. Then one day, when the Bakugan fell to Earth, one of them hits his house. It catches fire. He rushes in, but the only one he can save is Andrew. His parents perish in the fire. He's upset that humanity welcomed Bakugan and has been planning his revenge ever since. He developed the mask that could control Bakugan, but its first version was imperfect and instead caused the Bakugan to rampage. It was during the first rampage that rubble hit Andrew, giving him a concussion and causing him to lose his memory. Thinking he was dead right up until the beginning of this tournament, Vakar dove into his work, perfecting the mask and planning the extermination of the Bakugan through this tournament. Then, just before the finale, he offers TC to join him, because apparently they were once on the same side, and TC once helped Vakar develop this plan.
No, I did help cause this mess.
But TC decides to shed his old identity and embrace being Thundercrunch from the Misfit clan. Despite him and Dan trying to convince Vakar to stop this,
V, you don't have to do this. You can stop right now.
Vakar retreats back into his V persona, fighting and attempting to kill TC. He is willing to cast away anything that reminds him of the past in his pursuit of controlling the world that wronged him. Dan swoops in to save TC, and they shift gears to stopping the rampaging Bakugan. Oh yeah, that's right. So the Misfits calling V's mind control a virus was apt, because now the 13913 Bakugan are spreading the rampage virus to any vanilla Bakugan they defeat. The Misfits split up with Griffin and Juno helping Mia's dad develop more of the vaccine, while the others fight off the rampaging Bakugan. The police actually try to stop the kids, but the mayor begs Chip to just actually help the fleeing citizens. But Chip remembers cops aren't legally required to help people, look it up, and goes to attack Drago instead. He is then crushed under a pile of rubble and never seen again in the show. Based? Vakar uses his mask to make a bunch of super powerful BAMs and make his Bakugan the coolest and strongest actually, and mine is way bigger than yours, but then Dan and TC tell him size doesn't matter. We love you for your personality, and not your small penis, and Vakar turns to their side. Nilius, however, is a size queen and steals his mask to continue the fight. At this point, Dan and Drago have finally convinced the other Bakugan to join together against Nilius.
Time to get fucked!
It's just now dawning on me that this story is set in the midst of a rebellion against police brutality, coinciding with a pandemic where the solution is to get everyone vaxxed. But the populace is too busy fighting pointless culture wars of clanism to solve that issue? Huh. And I'm not kidding when I say the big climactic turning point is for one of the Dragon Bakugan to say, "I am racist, but..." And then they all team up on Nilius and defeat him. If only we outnumbered our oppressors in the real world too. Even after all that, Nilius keeps going. So Juno just fucking hacks him and turns him into a ball. Because she can do that. And actually, let's talk about that, because there have been some very weird implications about the Bakugan through this whole show. So they seem to be technological beings, as they are made of plastic and can be hacked. There are BAMs that can manipulate their abilities and seem to essentially be an unlimited resource. They have metal-themed evolutions that they didn't even know about for some reason, and to reach their more powerful big forms, they require pairing with a child. Adults won't work. A child of an alien race to them that they have never met? Are they like some created species? For what purpose? But we don't need to think about all that because Nilius is defeated. The ban on brawling is lifted, and the Misfits have defeated racism. We see Dan and Drago beat Insect Clan again, and not like someone they lost to before to show their growth. And then we see another shadowy figure recover V's mask. Season 2, let's go! Weird both it and Beyblade did that for their new generations. Okay, that's all I had to say about that. Bakugan 3 is certainly a show. I will say, I did not have a lot of faith going into this one. Originally, I was caught up a bit in the hype cycle like I am with every new generation of these franchises. I had been hearing bad things about the toys, but usually I prefer the shows over the actual games they're based on, so that didn't really affect my expectations. I started a watch party with my friends once it first came out, and we planned to watch it together, but yeah, that fell apart by episode 3. Most of them cited the show as just boring, and honestly, I agree. Here's local Bakugan fan Ray's opinion on that.
So I grew up with the first generation stuff, seasons 1 through 4. It may or may not have been an embarrassing part of my middle school life, but it is what it is. The second generation, I remember seeing like the first episode 4 and being like, yeah, I can see how they're trying to make it like more appealing to the age group today. And then generation 3 was invited to watch it, and it's something. It's an interesting take. I can't say I like it. Like, the humans are more involved with the process, which is really cool. Because, like, previously, they were just standing there and being like, Draco, use Meteor Wing! And then they swipe a card or something. And this one, the humans, like, run around an obstacle course, so you're, like, watching Wipeout while watching two monsters battle at it. It's kind of amusing when you think about it, but, like, the execution is, it's okay. The designs, they were designs... I guess the Bakugan translated well into, being Bakugan. Although, the whole ball thing that Bakugans do, did not see much of that in the show, which, like, I wish, the first generation did more, but this generation is, like, taking it. Draco is working at a McDonald's. That was funny, but, like, he's just constantly out and about, and you'd think that people would get alarmed. Especially with, the whole no brawling thing. It feels like a mess. I only watched until, like, the Bug faction, who are, like, the coding nerd, go, we declare a war on you, or something like that. And at that point, I'm just like, yeah, I think if I watch this, it'll be in the background, and it'll go in one ear and out the other. It's cool background noises. But, I don't have strong feelings towards it. Like, the bird is cool. I'm sure people want to do things with the bird, because the bird is cool.
I think it starts off slow and a little directionless. It isn't helped by the fact that the Misfits lose. A lot. And while I prefer that over them just being overpowered, it has the exact same problem as knowing they'll always win because there are no stakes even when they lose, making conflict seem almost meaningless. Instead, the first part of the season seems much more character-focused. and for what it's worth, I don't dislike the characters. I think for the most part, TC, Drago, Nilius, etc. are fun. Some characters, like Juno, can have annoying moments, but most of the time they're just hanging out and being kids. There's one episode in part 2 where Juno is exaggerating her injury for attention, but instead of going the route of every show that uses that plot, instead Dan decides to prank her, and when she catches wind of this, she plans to reverse prank Dan, and her Bakugan almost lets the reverse prank slip, making us think there will be a double reverse prank, only stopped by the plot happening. The show excels at these fun little scenarios, and it almost makes me think that it would have been better as a slice of life series than a plot-driven one. Even when they have tournaments, they aren't even the main focus. The one with V happens mostly off-screen after all, but that one is weird because at the very end, I do like the conflict with V. Having an interpersonal conflict where a member of the party is connected to the villain is something Bakugan excels at. Citation: the original show. So bringing the concept back and having Drago's own fellow captain to be the villain in part 1, then TC's own brother in part 2, makes me feel a lot more invested, especially when the narrative actually gives them weight. While Nilius is hard to take seriously because he's about as goofy as the other Bakugan, I mean he loses to a dog and a cat in a brawl, Vakar is serious at all times. Fittingly, because the series is allowed to go some dark places with him. Bakugan killed his parents. But what may be even more interesting than Vakar is that some of the show's most serious moments happen when it's being goofy. I've seen people online hate on Chip for his, well, stupid voice and stupid face, but he might be that way as a form of comic relief to tone down the more serious abuse he commits. Because the show basically details the progression of a normal society into a totalitarian police state in response to large migration of unfamiliar people groups. Not to mention the general anti-capitalist undercurrents of Illusion Techs stealing the capital of these migrating Bakugan and using it for their own profit. Vakar even says his own parents were fired because they wanted to actually use their technology for good rather than profit. So, based. My only other notes are that the design is okay. Fox disagrees.
The only one I've actually really seen is Drago in his like dude form when he's working at Burger King and shit, and it kind of just looks like muscle fetish art to me.
It doesn't really stand out, but it's not bad either. I go back and forth on the Bakugan. I think their designs are generally good, but maybe it's the way they move or the way they blended into the scene. Again, I just think they're fine. I've heard a lot about how the show is a vast improvement to Gen 2, but unfortunately I haven't seen it, so I wouldn't know. And this is where I would segue into a BakuTuber talking about Gen 2, but none of them responded to my emails. So I guess just stay tuned for when I inevitably watch that and review it myself. But, of course, I can't end this review without noting the most important characteristic of the show. Does it make me want to buy the toys? Well, yes and no. Yes, because I have a serious problem and will get the toys from all these shows one day, except Mixmaster, but no in the sense that I don't think it functions very well as a commercial. I think I can explain this best by comparing it to the original show. Bakugan 2007 features 6 brawlers who primarily use Bakugan of one of the 6 different elements. Each brawler has a main partner Bakugan who they can talk with, as well as various other Bakugan to be used in battle. In battle, their Bakugan transform into monsters, but outside of battle, they stay in their ball form. Even when they're unrolled outside of battle, they stay as toys and are able to walk around and talk as toys. The battles themselves play out just like the game in real life, and even when the Bakugan is transformed, you still see their ball form on the corner of the screen. In this way, the show not only gets the audience to form an attachment with the Bakugan through their character, but through liking one of the characters on the show, you may be interested in a particular element and the Bakugan that predominantly use that element. It also shows the toy form of the Bakugan so often that you'll want it, recognize it in the store, and buy it. The difference in Bakugan 2023 is that, most egregiously, the Bakugan are almost never shown in their balls. When I bought mine, I found myself awkwardly standing in the children's section for a lot longer than I wanted because I had to read every box to know what I was getting, rather than just being able to look at it and recognize, yeah, that's Drago. This show does keep the concept of the main cast composing multiple elements, this time replaced by clans, but they don't have a member for every clan. The clans also are not as intuitive. I could go out and know that a red Bakugan is Pyrus, but what color is Dinosaur? Mammal? The game in the show is also not at all like the game in real life, so it doesn't really make me want to play it. I mean, I like the game, and I think it's interesting to incorporate the player. It's a cool idea to have the kids running around these giant kaiju fighting with them, but it's not related to the real life game. The characters all also only have one partner Bakugan, which doesn't encourage me to endlessly consume and build a collection. So while things in the show may look cool, as an advertisement, it really falters. Bakugan 2023 is a bit of a jumbled mess in my opinion. Since my first video in 2022, I've been trying to re-dive back into the big toy anime franchises from my childhood. I've rewatched all of Pokemon, got mostly caught up with Beyblade and Yu-Gi-Oh, but the one I've had trouble getting back into is Bakugan. It's a unique series with a lot more Western influence than other toy anime, and I still believe it has one of the cooler designs for its toys. My memory as a child isn't that great, but I also have a good reason to believe this was my first toy anime. From my limited context around the show, I can say I was a little disappointed, but I am still hopeful. The toys don't look especially great right now, and you know what, the show didn't either at first, but I stuck with it. And while I usually say shows have promise but don't stick the landing, this one is the exact opposite. I did not see the promise with it, but it slowly hooked me in with the characters, and then, when the plot kicked in, I found myself invested. It stuck the landing. So, all this to say, don't count this one out just yet. Bakugan 3.0 is just getting started, and it's got a long future ahead of it. Hopefully, a good future, too. And if you want to experience its past, believe it or not, my buddy Joe is going over the entire first generation. And just like I said in my first video on the channel a year and a half ago, it'll be out any day now, so stay tuned. Subscribe button, roll. Subscribe button, stand. Core Vision, out. The Bakugan fell to Earth after being mysteriously transported from the Vistora galaxy. Nope, that'll get me comments.